Right, hello there, everyone. This is as I said, this is going to be like a solo stream. We're going to be talking about the um, recent attacks on the royals, on the system of the royal family. Not so much um, the the details, the strict details between what was said in the interview, but the I guess the sort of more political dynamic motive of why the royals are the next victim of what I've called before the Eye of Sauron, cathedral, the establishment. So that's what we're discussing. I've got a few usual people. We've got Mergut, hello, and Farbod and Gammon, good afternoon and good morning to all of you. And Voice of Prospero, good afternoon to you as well. And so, what we're going to be going through here is looking at what the narrative was leading up to the interview, but also looking at who are the people who've been jumping on in condemning the royal family as well. Roy Herbert, good afternoon. And also Enigmatic, good day. Yes, God save the Queen, definitely. So, as the title suggests, I've called this BlueAnon, and because this really sums up what I think is happening, and also could be applied to the recent feminist, radical feminist assault on men over the very recent murder, which has happened really in the last couple of days, and how the radical left has politicized a real tragic event. And it just doesn't sit right with me, that one. It's really, really disgusting because, they started doing it before they even found the body, for God's sake. But that's another topic for another discussion. So this one we're focused on, BlueAnon. It was a term that came up by this particular Twitter user called Jack Pisobiak. I'm pronouncing the name right. He is I guess you could say, American conservative, Republican, Trump supporter. He coined the term BlueAnon to encumber what the Democrats, the sort of narrative the Democrats has come up with, and I guess it's to counter really what QAnon is, the conspiracy theories around QAnon and what they believe Trump and the international paedophile and trans-dimensional elves and all that sort of stuff. So BlueAnon is basically the Democrat version of it, and so he's listed before Jesse Smollett as one example. I think even George Floyd killing, because the full information is going to come out soon, actually, in the courts of what actually went down. And remember, we got the information, we got some selected footage at the start of it, which was then the media run away with, and racist police officer killing unarmed black guy and all that sort of stuff. But then until you see the body cam footage, then you actually get the full picture of what actually went down. And so what else? The Covington kids as well. Remember that one? That was another, with the Native American drummer getting in their face, and then there was accusations that they were being racially discriminating against him, and it turns out he walked into that situation. So there's a long list of instances that occurred which have been to the benefit of the radical left or the Democrats in America, but have actually turned out to be complete false situations. And so that's what it is. In fact, BlueAnon, it is the conspiracy theory. And so I think it's a useful terminology to use, in fact, because it delegitimizes their narrative in a way where we do dismiss it as a conspiracy theory, because in reality, they provide no evidence. It's usually along the lines of feelings, and there's this really horrendous Americanized term which Meghan used in the interview, which was my truth, which means nothing, because truth is, it's not like an opinion. It's subjective. It's truth is truth, and false is false. And she could have said, in my opinion, this is what it was like for me, but no, it was her truth. So there we go. Just stated out what BlueAnon is. So first bit is let's see here. Go into my accounts. See, I had it all planned out. Right. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, it's not. It's no coincidence that I guess you could say in America, the Hollywood, the democratic establishment, i.e. Hollywood, the media, celebrities, firms, companies, CEOs, that sort of stuff, have all come out and in defense of Meghan, because she is, I guess, sort of one of their own. But also, I think what runs quite deeper from this, and a lot of it is down to Trump in many ways, because he's no longer there. He's no longer. I mean, he has been deplatformed from most of the internet at this point. Even when he's featuring on someone else's, what's it, RB? Is it that independent news network in America, the RBS, something like that? That content from their YouTube was removed. So there's nobody. The boogeyman that all these people had, and this figure of hate that they had, this that existed for them, is now gone, and they got their own guy and team in power in America. And so what else can they latch to? Well, one thing they can latch to is the supposed white supremacist threats to the Capitol, that there's going to be another storming any day now. And if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow, and if it's not next week, it'll be a week later. And it sort of comes to like, I guess, like you would say, like a religious cult, where it promises that the day of salvation will be on this day, and then it never happens, and then it goes to the next day, and then naturally you would come to the conclusion that, okay, well, these people are getting it wrong, that it's not going to happen. But with these people, with the BlueAnon people, they will target anything that they consider to be evil white supremacist power. And the British monarchy in a lot of these people's minds, and we've seen and I'll find some videos of this in like the American chat shows and such, of heavy references to British history, which is again, selectively edited. So we'll get into that. So just to start with, yeah, in this clip here, this was an audio clip that was caught where Harry is asking CEO of Disney to give Meghan Markle a job in an upcoming film or Disney production, one would assume. What's caused a bit of stir about this at the time was this was meant to be Prince Harry was invited to a memorial event. I think it was something to do with the Royal Marines, and he was turned down, and he went to this. So again, you could see when it comes to those two where their preferences lie in all this, and it is to the blue establishment in California. So you had the interview, and of course the fallout from the interview was predictable in the sense of the radical left in the UK, like the Republican lots. I wasn't surprised that they jumped on the bandwagon to call for the abolition of the monarchy and all that. I was surprised, though, to see the monarchy being attacked by, I guess you could say, by the Americans, especially those in the Democrats. Especially, you even had Biden's press secretary saying that the president stands by this strong person of color, black woman's testimony on racial stuff and blah 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 blah. Usual bullshit. Which naturally, I must assume. I mean, that must have caused a diplomatic. Well, it must have caused a diplomatic incident, because if you're the British government, well, what do? You got America, who's now, the cultural wing of America is effectively all out condemning the monarchy. So what do? And so it seems to be from the UK government, it's been sort of silence. You've got individuals who are, and quite rightfully, standing up for the monarchy. Jacob Rees-Mogg as one notable individual. And so, let's see. So we got all these usual nice people. Again, one thing that is really fascinating with all this, the media's narrative in this country, and this sort of plays into the BlueAnon theory, is that you'll hear in like you turn on Sky or BBC, you'll hear like the presenters say a great this what would be, it'd be a great debate has now been formed around the topic of the monarchy, whether they are racist or not. And it's got the British people talking about this in communities and households across the country, something like that. Reality is a very minority group of Republican activists, Republican in being British context Republican, far left activists, and media outlets talking about it. What boosted in this instance the various hashtags of abolish the monarchy and Team Markle and Harry, and over this, the color of Archie's skin comment was predominantly, from what I can see, Americans and people not within the UK or within the Commonwealth itself. So I mean, as I said, let's see who's on. So you got Democratic Socialist. Let's see. American. Don't know where that is, but yeah, you get the picture. It's a lot of Americans, a lot of cringe, to be honest, and fundamentally, a lot of it comes down to um, a lack of understanding. I think a lot of it is down to the problem of what post-Enlightenment concept of what nationhood is and isn't, because of course the concept of the monarchy in this country predates the Enlightenment, quite a bit. I mean, it goes back to the continuation of the monarchy, you could say, in the British Isles goes back as far as the 6th century, if you want to push it. I mean, so the institution itself, which Megan refers to, it is deep rooted in the country, in the culture, with its people, and it does play a function. I mean, one of the things is, and I'll just give a quick lowdown. When they say, well, what is the Queen's responsibility? So what you have is, when you have bills and laws passed in this country, it will go to Parliament. Parliament will debate it, vote on it. It will then get chucked up to the House of Lords. Similar thing will happen there. Lords will debate it. If they amend it, it goes back down to Parliament. But Parliament, from what I understand now, can overrule the Lords and push that through. And then the final ascension is royal ascension, so that's when it gets to the Queen's desk and she can sign off on it. Currently, the Queen, so when it comes to powers within the Queen can, in theory, refuse to sign legislation, in theory, though it's not done for just because the Queen has the ethos of that the monarchy shouldn't be politicized. And I know there are some in our circles who are more sympathetic to the absolutionist movement when it comes to how the monarchy should behave. I do somewhat respect the idea of a group, a part of the institution where it isn't political. I mean, one example, I've been reading Andy Ngo's Unmasked, and one of the interesting bits in the book is it explains, when it comes to Antifa in Portland, you have this situation where you have Oregon as a blue state, Portland County has Portland itself. You got Democrat legislators, Democrat mayor, Democrat coroner, Democrat elected officials and judges and what have you. And what happens? You have this really bad situation where if you are an Antifa member, you could go out, commit pretty violent actions, and like you had in 2020, you had all these people who'd be arrested, but then they'll be released without charge. And because politically it benefited the Democrats with Black Lives Matter, Antifa rioting, because then they could use that, the violence and everything else, and the death toll numbers against Trump, which they did do in some cases before Trump intervened with the National Guard and federal forces being used in likes of Portland and such. And I do think that sort of system that they have is somewhat heavily, really weak for a society, because you then have a situation where the rule of the mob ends up becoming the rule of law. And then, again, further weakening a society. And I think it's safe to say, look, it comes to America, they are at this stage coming down from their post-war glory, let's say. And this is probably the sort of final descent. Yeah, so what we have here, I mean, as I said, you got a lot of Americans. And this is the thing, because one of the interesting things, when you're an American, and we see a lot of America content, especially on this side of YouTube, political YouTube. Everything in America, of course, is when it comes to division in society. When you look at or differences in society, it's usually highlighted along race. It's not so much like ethnicity or religion as much, but it's done on race, because race is the it's the big hot topic issue that currently exists. And so what you have is Americans where the race grift itself is the sort of paradigm which they see the world in. And then what you have is they will then export that. So when they look at something overseas, like the situation with the royal family, you have a really no context statement that Meghan said in the interview. And then again, I might actually play a bit of the. I don't know if I can. I'll try and have a look. I don't think I can play the interview, but when it comes to the question of Archie's color, and on the question of Archie's color, it was raised by Oprah. I mean, she was the one that introduced in the conversation the racial dynamic of it. So you saw that play out. And I mean, I don't think it was much of an interview. I think it was more of a propaganda piece, to be honest. And what you had was the racialization and injection of Americanism and Americanism identity politics to be used as a battering ram against the royal family. Now, the question is, will this work? I don't think it will work, and I'll probably say why. I think, first of all, I think the reason it won't work is because, number one, Meghan was out, and she would have been far more useful to them if she was within the family. And I think there was, I think it was difficult for her to push the agenda from within, because the royal family is, in essence, meant to be non-political. They can raise awareness for certain issues, several charities and everything, but they cannot use political rhetoric, and they can't be political in public life. I'll just say hello to current commentator. I'd definitely like to do a collab. Definitely like to do a collab with you. If you're on social media or Twitter, you can DM me on there, and we can get something working. So yeah, we'll definitely be up for that. I was going to say, yeah, and so what you have is naturally, I think what you have, the battle lines forming in America, is where you're Democrat, you're on side of Meghan because she's this poor, oppressed person of color, blah, 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 blah. And you have the Republican conservative side, you have they're on side. I guess they're on side of either monarchy or don't care really. I think a lot of people, especially I've seen like American context, either just don't care or see what's going on, and so what you have is the accusation that this comment was made about Archie's skin color, which is presented with no context. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean negative, but yeah. So I guess from the American viewpoint, where everything is racialized, and if you're an X person with privilege, you cannot say certain things, otherwise you're a racist and what have you. I think so, yeah. Some Farbod, you just it's stupid, because the question is, I don't know how it can be remotely racial, bearing in mind the baby itself would be, hardly, want it back, but basically white, effectively. The same with Meghan. I mean, she when you look at her, do you see a person of color? I mean, she could be Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Greek. She could be quite Greek. I mean, when I was in Cyprus, my skin color was a lot darker than she was. So I mean, I could claim that. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. But one thing that's quite interesting was beyond the celebrities, it was politicians joining in with the sort of rhetoric. So let's go to the Clintons. See what old Hillary Clinton's been up to. So she joined in with the rhetoric, and she's been a very big proponent of the BlueAnon conspiracy as well. So let's see where we can find her. She's done a lot of tweeting actually over the last couple of days. Yeah, so here we go. That was one. Oh, I might just go to the CNN article instead because I can't find it. Yeah, so basically Hillary says Hillary Clinton weighed in on Monday on Oprah Winfrey's explosive interview with Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and her husband, Prince Harry, offering support for Meghan and decrying the tabloids and bureaucracy that often targeted her. I mean, that was the thing, because the narrative originally was that this was to hit out against the tabloid, the British press, which again I don't mind because the press in this country are pretty scummy. So yeah, I don't care. I have no feeling either way for either of them. But what you had was obviously the whole thing was pretty much directed at the likes of the institution of the monarchy, but Prince Charles as well. In many ways, it was quite explicitly targeted at him in some cases. So what we have is Hillary Clinton said, "I found it so heart-rending to watch," Clinton said during the Washington Post live event on Monday. Nothing that she had met the pair as well as Harry's late mother, Princess Diana. Clinton called it heartbreaking that Meghan was not fully embraced, not just by the permanent bureaucracy that surrounds the royal family, but the media in the UK. I don't agree with any of that. I mean, you just Google the royal wedding and just look at what the papers. I mean, they make it sound like the British papers were, using the gamer word against her. Let me just see the papers. So again, the BlueAnon theory is that from the get-go, she was a victim of direct racism by the papers in the UK. And let's just bring this up. Right, so that's the American paper. Let's bring up the Sun. So again, they look quite a positive image in all of this. Nothing to suggest that there was a sort of nasty or vicious remark. Again, royal wedding. I'm getting married. I'm getting harried in the morning. Yeah, I mean, the Sun, they've always done like comical jokes for their headlines, but I mean, nothing that would make you suggest that anything was directly nasty. I mean, look, Meghan to fight feminism, Daily Telegraph, pretty good image. Go to the Express, the evil right-wing paper of the UK. Again, so in love, wedding day, joy for Harry and Meghan. Yeah. But what you have now is, a few years on, the BlueAnon are now pushing the narrative that the media just rejected them, the people in Britain who are largely racist and ignorant, and the establishment all rejected her because she's a person of color, and that great changes need to happen in the institution and everything else. And it's insufferable to watch because they will lie and they'll get away with it because no one will hold them to account. I mean, we saw this with Piers Morgan. He tried to hold them account. He even did what I'm doing now, where he showed examples. And what happened to him? He was cut down for saying it, and she phoned up to complain, and that's why the ITV got rid of him. So again, the BlueAnon, they can say and do anything, get away with it. And I mean, one of my previous streams where I did talk about India, but this was different because the Indian government saw what was happening and they put a stop to it, and it was actually a win for them against Greta Thunberg and the same sort of BlueAnon establishment when it comes to environmentalism, which is racked up with the conspiracy theories, that the world's going to end in 10 years, climate emergency, disaster, and all that, so I mean, it's pretty frustrating because the assault is coming thick and fast here, and it's especially within the circles in America, it's going to be remembered. This isn't going to be remembered. It's going to be remembered that she came in. I mean, I can already see the film now, of her, or the Netflix series or what have you, of where she comes in and she's going to be, it's going to be like Downton Abbey, where she's going to be like this riffraff that comes in from the cold, and all the servants and such look down to her, and it'll be, and she'll be like, mocked for not learning how to curtsy and sing the national anthem. No one told her how to do that, and I was like, well, you did enough research into Diana's wardrobe. I mean, have you seen? I've been trying to find the clip all day, but there's a image, there's 100 images of these going around of Meghan wearing exact outfits that of Diana, and with the exact same pose as well. It's not. I mean, you can say maybe like one or two, maybe a coincidence, but no, it's quite clear she wants to model herself around Princess Diana, which is kind of sick in a way because I mean, that's Harry's dead mother. It's like it's weird. It's really weird. And one of the big things with all this is that Americans have had to, especially leftist Americans, have had to come to terms with what, with British culture, where it's not presented in a way which they understand. So, like, for example, the thing of like when it comes to Meghan and her mental health, the attitude obviously in Britain that was projected was when Americans were talking about it as a negative thing, as a negative thing, which is the stiff upper lip, that keep calm and carry on. And of course, one of the biggest, like the absolute over-talked issue of our age is mental health. And I think a lot of people are using mental health as an excuse for a whole range of things. Now, I mean, I think things in life is tough, and it always has been tough, and it always will be tough. And I think one thing that I always think is a really good virtue is stoicism, and I think that's you look at. I mean, I look at monarchs and kings and queens throughout the ages, and I think stoicism is an absolute brilliant virtue, because it is what gives character and character building. And adversity is what a lot of these people are afraid of, because they don't want to improve themselves, because for them, within the leftist mind, they are perfect as they are. I mean, we see this in like lyrics and songs, and being pushed through the media and everything. So for them, the idea of self-improvement is a highly negative action to take. You must accept me for who I am. And you bigot, or we must change society for the terms of society for a selective few. And I mean, just look at the transgender debate, for example. I mean, that's a classic example. I mean, society, the pronouns and everything. Society had to change for, again, a select few. And I say you'll just go through some of the comments here. So, Mergoot, it's funny because black activists scream bloody murder about WP using the one drop rule, then turn it around and use it to get their way. WP, one drop rule. I don't know what that means. I think I know what you mean, but yeah, I mean, all these people are hypocrites. Fundamentally, they're all hypocrites. They will scream and I mean, I use the example that's ongoing with the whole feminists going off about men over this murder, which has very little. Well, no one knows the full extent of why this occurs, why this police officer did what he did. We don't know. We'll presumably find out whenever what happens in the courts, and after the court proceedings, we'll find out in detail. But yeah, I mean, it's been politicized, and we are expected to change society for a BlueAnon conspiracy theory that all men, there's like these bands of men going around London, presumably looking to murder women. And to be honest, I mean, like, I mean, number one, the narrative that's been set is that walking the streets isn't safe, and it's like, well, yes, but maybe that's because Labour run London, Sadiq Khan's London. Maybe. I don't think we have. I mean, there are literally, where I live, there's been about one murder, I think, in the last 10 years, and that was the victim was a man. So, again, astroturf movement. And so when I mean astroturf, none of it has any grassroots foundation. So, like, you look at the so let's take this reclaim the night movement, or whatever, what have you. All of it has come from echo chambers within radical left-wing feminist circles, journalists and everything. Nobody in the UK really talked about it. And you see this in their reporting. Like, if you look at like the BBC and Sky's reporting of this, they will only pick diverse women of colour in London and London alone. They will not go outside of it. And I know how they work. They have to interview these people, and to get them to agree. They usually go on Facebook and go onto certain groups to see if anyone's interested in appearing on camera, talk about this subject. And there's plenty of radical feminists on these groups to answer the calls. And so it's like a self-perpetuating astroturf movement. Same with Extinction Rebellion. That is a huge astroturf movement of progressive urban city people. In the business, we call this foreshadowing. Yes, there's going to be a lot of foreshadowing coming up as well, in case you weren't aware. Voice of Prospero says, I expect the police officer crime in George Floyd incident was at worst negligence, if anything. I don't know, because according to the defense, he put him on the floor to put him in the recovery position. And that when you saw that image of him supposedly leaning on his neck, he was in the recovery position, but he had to restrain him because he was frailing about, and that was city policy. So, I mean, one could argue in that case the officer was following city policy, but city policy, the Democrat-run city, is what killed George Floyd. I mean, in reality, probably from what the coroner's reports on this, it was actually the excess of, was it meth and other cocktail of drugs that he would consume that day. So who knows? But I think he's gonna get off on it, and I'll talk about later why that might affect what we'll talk about today about the Royals and everything, because I can see something happening this summer. Will Sarah Everett's father be subject to 6 p.m. curfew? Well, that's the thing, in theory, yeah, he would. If he's living in Wales, one would presume if he's passed, yeah, he would. I mean, it's really, really tough, because what you have is the media and Labour. I mean, Labour politicians and the Green Party, the radical left in this country, have politicized the death of a woman to talk about, I guess, statistically a non-event. Looking at the statistics and all this, that there's this wider society violence against women. And I was like, well, compared to what? Are you going to compare it to Britain a couple hundred years ago? Are we going to compare it to other nations around the world, like Pakistan, India? Who are we going to compare it to? Richard. Yeah, he did. He swallowed. On the arrest tape, he actually swallowed a tablet or something. They were getting him out of the car, and he just quickly swallowed a tablet. So, he put it in his mouth, and I mean, we don't even know the motive. I mean, this is the thing. Like, you wouldn't expect conservative MPs, now would you, to say straight after an Islamic terror attack we had in this country, right, that's it, we need to look into the societal problem of Muslim terror attacks, 6 p.m. curfews, go. I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, that would be the equivalent response to all of that. And it comes down to left refusing to acknowledge statistical data. For them, emotional equals reality. Yeah, well, it goes back to the sort of my truth. So my truth is that women are being hunted down in the street by the thousands a day. It's my truth that black people in this country are being disproportionately killed by police officers per day, and it's how I perceive my conspiracy of the world. My conspiracy is my truth, and it's pretty dangerous because again, it's fanatic, zealot, cult-like behavior. And you are part of the 13%. Congratulations. So where do I see this particular ongoing assault on the monarchy? Because the monarchy released the Crown, Her Majesty the Queen released a statement where basically she said, "I don't believe that you are black." You say, "Okay, well done, congratulations. You are now projecting internalized whiteness, sir. So you're no longer black." Joe Biden said, "Told me to tell you that." Yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, what I see is what. Okay, so what will happen? My predictions for this year, or coming up fairly soon. The officer in the George Floyd case will be found not guilty because the charges that were brought on him and everything, it doesn't bear out in reality. And also from what I've seen of the jury selection process and everything, a lot of the jurors, they're normal people, which mean they're reasonable, which mean the leftists hate them because they are Nazis, because they are reasonable. And so what you're going to see is he's more than likely going to be found not guilty. The BlueAnon and the will riot in across America, and you'll have again politicians calling for police and probably legal reform as well, and on legal definitions and such. You'll see the corporations, I think, get behind it. And then probably within 2 weeks of the rioting, it will, like it was last time, it will be exported out of America. And then what you'll have is it will be mutated in the UK, especially in cities like Bristol or London and such, where it will be Black Lives Matter protests against the the injustice against the injustice that was presented from George Floyd's family, and also institutionalized racism in the country, that being the royal family. And so, will there be rioting in the UK? I think there could be. I think definitely in Bristol. I think Bristol is definitely stoking up for it again. I mean, we saw the thing about the reparations thing. I mean, it's getting worse in Bristol. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's getting a lot worse there. London could be again. I mean, Bristol actually has quite a bit of an Antifa problem. It's I mean, you got Stokes-Croft, Clifton. You have a lot of radical left individuals who are well connected and well organized, and also have a city councillors who are also in, I'm not going to say in the pockets, but within this, they are within the same political club, let's say. So I could definitely see something happening in the summer here in the UK as a result of what's going to happen in America. I think when it comes to, like, say, a protest or a riot, it would be a riot. So a riot in London, I think Buckingham Palace or some symbol. I mean, that's the only thing, symbol of royalty that I can think of. If beyond Windsor or somewhere, that would be a target for protests, Black Lives Matter protests. So that would be my guess is where it would be next. So yeah, I think the fight itself. I mean, the important thing about what's happened today with this whole sort of debate about the monarchy and whether it is modern enough and all that sort of crap, it's setting the foundations for the upcoming battle. This is like the skirmish, and then you got the upcoming battle, and there are two choices really that they've put before the monarchy. Now, the monarchy can kneel before the progressive woke agenda and beg for penitence, and they'll be left alone. Which you're never left alone with these people. You'll never be left alone. Or and this is the option that they've pretty much gone with the royal statement, is they hold firm and say no, and this is a private matter. When it comes to tactics against these people, it's pretty much doing what I'm doing now. You just record it. You record it at the time, and then when it happens, like say, if I'm proven right and rioting does happen, I will just share this stream that we've done together today, and we go on from there. That's what we'll do. We can show them that none of this is real. So we're coming to nearly an hour, so I probably do go to Q&A at the moment. At this moment in time for people. So I'll just let you guys start typing Q&A questions, and we'll go on from there. And if any of you want to ask me a question, feel free. I'll give you all a minute to think, and we'll go through this. Got Marble. What's he? If the Supreme Court will abandon their duty because they are scared of riots, why won't some random judge or jury? One of the problems is that when it comes to America, a lot, like in this country, the Supreme Court positions. I mean, that they are heavily political in the sense of. Sorry, it's heavily political in the sense of, from what I understand, rules, and there's like loopholes and such. They don't. There are multiple precedents that can be set. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things. When it comes to like a legal court, they have to. I mean, effectively, they have to follow the law, because that's the rules set out. Also, I mean, again, the jury, they have to get people locally, and a lot of people in Minneapolis were affected by these riots. I mean, I remember reading some of that. It was estimated like something like 40 or 50% of the city was affected either by destruction of property, or looting or something. So yeah, I think because the jury, I think it will come out as it should be. I think it will be. It could be that they want it to, though. I mean, this could be like a complete psyop that they actually want it to fall apart, so that they can riot and then force more left-wing agendas and more radical change. So we've just got a couple of questions here. So we got from Richard, what is the end goal to all of this? Well, I think the end goal to all of this is I would say the sort of progressive revolution, or I think a lot of it comes down to the Marxist revolution, but doing it through the back door. They can't openly on the streets with the hammer and sickle, so they have to do this through the back door. I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. A lot of the progressive stuff. Also, I mean, Peter Hitchens, his book on the abolition of Britain, he talked about how societal shift that was presented at the time, that we went from this nation of stiff upper lip, stoic people to overtly emotional and publicly emotional European style of behavior when it came to the reaction of, when you compare it to Churchill's funeral or Diana's funeral. I think it's ultimately trying to shift the culture, and of course you're going to be hearing that Britain has you've got we've been bombarded with the multiculturalism crap for a long time. So I mean, again, I think the ultimate aim is introducing Marxism through the back door. So we've got Voice of Prospero. Says, do you think America is heading towards separation with a massive increase in division? Possibly. Yeah, I think yeah, I think that's safe to say. I'm safe to say that yeah, it will, because I think there'll become a point where they'll be coming after the guns. So yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be. I mean, I think you'll have like mini Wacos. I think that could happen. Protests, secession, possibly. I don't know. It depends how I mean, I think one of the biggest problems for them is there was this belief that they could propaganda, produce this list propaganda to try and even now they're trying to get Republicans to reject Trump, and that's just not happening. So I think it could happen. Yeah. Plebeian, as a white working class male from the black country, that the vast majority of working class is very supportive of the crown, including the patriotic left. Do you think they have factored that in? No. The left in this country have become Americanized, and they are all metropolitan urban types, especially in the South, which is controlled by those said people in the South. So I mean, I'm going to be honest, and this is where I would say to people who are patriotic and left leaning in those northern traditional Labour voting areas, and in Welsh seats as well. The Labour Party now view you as racist, bigots, and scum and Nazis. So yeah, that and there is this sort of complacency to think that they will vote for them. I mean, there's Labour have this really bizarre view that if they just put a couple of Union Jacks on and sing the praises of the military, then that would be enough to get those voters back. But yeah, it's not a Labour Party, and have become the party of university constituencies and metropolitan centres. That's where they've gone. But the problem is they don't need to be in power to enact power. They need to just subvert the institutions, have their pals in the media to astroturf narratives, and they're good to go. And what makes it so sad is the only way they could be stopped. Their assault could be stopped right in their tracks if Boris or whoever in government just says no to them. He just needs to say no. Nothing will happen. I guarantee you. I mean, I guarantee if you've got any conservatives watching now, if you encounter this, just say no to them. I guarantee you will not be. It will not affect poll rating. It will not affect public opinion. It will just be no, and that's it. Nothing else will happen. Enigmatic says, is there any hope of in convincing SNP supporters to vote otherwise, knowing their independence or bust worldview? Also considering a judicial review to strike down the bill on human rights ground. I think some SNP supporters are. There's always going to be a percentage of them. I always think there's probably about 600,000 of them, from what I've seen, like on elections where they're low and high points. There's about 600,000 of them who will always vote religiously for the SNP. The remainder sort of 500,000 who have voted for them or have voted for other parties and then gone to vote for them again or what have you. Those are the ones where I want to see as interesting. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of SNP politicians have been ratioed in their tweets and have the opinion polling suggests that their vote share in the polls is dipping below 50%. And traditionally in polling, SNP samples are heavily overpolled by likes of YouGov, Moripol, and Smallcast and a list of other companies. So I don't know. When it comes to Hansa Yusuf's, will it be struck down as human rights grounds? I think you could argue it on that. I think you could. I think it's a very good argument to make on that. I would recommend maybe somebody of influence up there north of the border be up there, launch a campaign against that. Maybe one of the parties or something that's interested in that, because I think there's a majority support against this. Like with the named person scheme, where it's basically the state has like the third wheel in the family to sort of protect children, which is just control. Again, it does look like that Scots are getting fed up. I think ultimately there may be a percentage. I do think there could be a percentage of Scots that will vote, that won't turn out and vote. If they are SNP supporting, they want independence, but they don't want to vote for the SNP, they might just not turn out and vote. That's one thing I think should be factored in, because I think that has happened before, where in Scotland, I think in the 2017 election, a good portion of them just didn't vote. I think that could happen, but we will see. The postal vote system in this country does concern me a bit, especially in Scotland, when it's like a one-party state and the Crown, the courts and everything seem to be on the side of the party that runs the state. So that thing does concern me. But from Rory Herbert, did you see the recent YouGov poll that stated that more than a third of Britons surveyed said they sympathise with the Queen, compared with 1 in 5 who sympathise with Harry and Meghan? I did see that one. And again, you look at polling companies, I bet you a good portion of that sample polling was done in urban settings. So like obviously London, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, because I don't know why, but a lot of the opinion polling is done in urban areas because it's easier to poll than sort of more sparsely populated areas. So in reality, I think it could be as high. I think it could be as high as 70%. In theory, it could be. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Again, it shows that I think the British public are waking up to something like this, because they know it's full of shit, which is good, because it is. Let's see. Plebeian AI Shide, do you think, as I do, the attack on the Crown is actually a tactical mistake on their part? This will wake up the patriotic working middle upper classes and galvanise opinion against White Brigade in a way which I don't think you've seen it yet in culture wars. I think that could be on the tables, because I think the Crown itself is okay. And I don't want to. Okay, this is going to sound controversial in itself, maybe with some of you guys. The Crown itself is quite all-encompassing, and so what you have is people in this country love the monarchy. People outside in the Commonwealth love the monarchy and somewhat revere them as divine rulers and everything. And if you look at wokeism, it requires absolute submission, which is not necessarily the same thing, but both require authority, love, and that sort of stuff. So you've got two competing ideologies which are somewhat can be seen as similar from afar. I think there's a few subtle differences there with the monarchy. So they don't have the same levels of power, but they have the same level of overreach and such when it comes to culture-wise. I think the monarchy will prevail in this. Number one, they have. I mean, they've stood over 2,000 years, and they have deep respect within the country. They have immense connections with the Commonwealth. I think from what I can see, all of this is just going on in left-wing American echo chambers, and that's where it's all confided at the moment. And it's trying to break its way through the media, but I mean, it'd be interesting to see what would happen if the woke left do go all out war with the royals, because I don't think they would come out on top somehow. I think in fact in many ways it probably would. I don't know if it destroy the woke movement, but I think it would definitely humiliate them publicly. It'd be like Gamergate sort of level of humiliation, like the way that the game journalists were humiliated during that whole affair. Voice of Prosperigan, as the token Scot, I feel I should ask, is there anything Tories south of the border can do to help fight against Adolf Yusuf's hate crime bill and get it revoked? Unfortunately, and this is where it comes down to, and this predates devolution. The Scottish legal system is independent and separate from the English legal system, which is also separated from the role of the elected house, whether it's Westminster or Holyrood. I don't know legally if there is something that could be done south of the border. You have the Supreme Court, which I wouldn't hold in the UK. That is, which is the Blair invention. I don't hold out much hope if you to do something on there. I don't know what legislation you could pick from to object to from this, unless you went down the. I mean, the only one I can think of which would probably get a bit of success would be the European human rights, which is a shame because I mean, our constitution is unwritten, so we have an unwritten constitution. So I think the only way it would be to vote the SNP out, and then to overturn this bill. That'd be the only way that I think you could do it. That or public protests, committee network in your community, get the word out there. But any other country, you're right, yeah. Any other country. I mean, like imagine if in America you had a situation where one of the states just went completely rogue and just said up you to the First Amendment. Or they would send in the federal troop. The National Guard be federalized. They'll send in the troops, and they would stop this from happening, like they've done before when it came to civil rights stuff and other instances of like violence and everything. So, yeah, I don't know what, but nothing. I don't think anything could be done south of the border apart from support, help get the messaging out there. That's about it, really. So what else? Plebeian, the crown stood since Alfred the Great. The institution has withstood the Reformation, Renaissance, Industrial Revolution. With the expansion of the franchise, Wokes can't fathom the coming storm. I think that is the case because the monarchy has adapted so many different times over the eras, the historical eras, that I don't think there is any way, because I mean the woke, they have to appeal to their own, they have to, number one, come across as victims and appeal to a level of victimhood. So what you have is the only thing that they could attack the royals with would be the empire, India, any property or any sort of diamonds or anything that have come from a direct relation to our empire. That's the only thing I can think they could attack us on. But then they'd have to go into British history, and then that's easy because you can just debunk them from there. It's quite easy to debunk them on a lot of the historical topics, and also history requires a lot. When you're looking at historical events, it requires a lot of effort and detailed investigation, which I don't think these people have the mentality for. So I think what will happen is they'll just move on. I think they will do what they did with India, and they'll just turn around and move on, because the Crown has not bent the knee to them, and the government. I mean, it'd be nice if the government could openly support, just say, yeah, we don't recognise the narrative being pushed by American individuals in the US and like media outlets. We don't recognise what's been said. I mean, I think one of the untold stories is the diplomatic relation, that's the sort of disaster it's done. Because, I mean, the fact that the Democrats, senior Democrat politicians, and the President of the United States himself, Biden, has got involved with this and coming out in support of Meghan. I mean, I don't know how you could invite Biden to this country at any point in the future. In fact, I mean, in reality, we should, in theory, expel several US diplomats from the country over this, because it is quite a serious. It's quite a serious diplomatic incident that has been caused. Rory Herbert again. Also, Enigmatic, he's put in here the reference. So it's S29 of the Scotland Act 1998 for reference. I think he's from that. It's the human rights stuff. Scotland Act. I'll have to look into that to see what that says. But I mean, if there's something there that can help, then yeah, that's something that must be done. Rory Herbert, bring back the divine right of kings. Yeah, yeah. I do what, because I'm doing a stream on Wednesday, I think, with His Apostolic Majesty on talk about whether or not the American Wars of Independence was a mistake, and of course I'm on the side of it was a mistake, and Britain should rule and everything. And one thing I've been thinking, and you think about this when you see like the caliber of politicians we have at the moment, you do think to yourself that in many ways monarchy in itself, I think, is a natural form of how humans operate, because just look at take Jess Phillips or AOC. I mean, these people are not natural leaders, even in not talking about like a nationwide, but just community. They're not the people who would naturally be at the top of the food chain in all this. So, I think republics are inherently weak, especially an American republic, because they are effectively. You have a situation where 7% can dictate societal terms, dictate policy, and get away with murder near enough in some cases. And that's I think that's where you have that's one of the downsides with republics in that, because it doesn't necessarily mean democracy. I think the UK system before Blair, I think it was okay. I think trouble was a lot of with the problem with the UK is that it was that Blair and everything was sort of Europeanism injected into the British political system. I mean, I'm at the opinion now is that the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament should both be abolished at this point, because I mean you can't have a situation where Mark Drayford is threatening to, who will consider, I should say, curfewing men, beyond sort of 6 p.m. or something, if needed. Same with the mayors, metro mayors, and such. I mean, I don't mind when you have power devolved. Localism. I mean, that's the thing. Localism. The idea is it may be done through community, like local communities, not like creating mini Londons, really, like mini parliaments and mini things. Because then what you have is you have no oversight. You have no ways of keeping them in check, and that's why you have authoritarians like Hamza Yusuf, and why you have authoritarians like Mark Drayford, why they're able to say these things, because they know they're not going to be challenged by them. And I hate to say it, but like Welsh Conservatives are pretty weak. I mean, the only good thing is like with Up Scotland is the Scottish Conservatives seem to be on the same picture. I mean, I think when it came to that hate crime bill, I think they all voted against it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they all voted against it, which is good, because it'd be worse if you had like a sort of a group of wets up there who were working, in tangent with the nationalists. Oh, hello, Teabag. Yes, solo stream today. Solo stream. I was going to say, any more questions from anybody? I'll give you guys a minute. And then probably if there's a couple more or there's no more, I'll head off. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Walk my dog. So I'll just see if I'll give you guys a minute. Okay, got a couple more questions. I'll probably leave it at this then. So how's life in the Shire going? Not too bad. Not too bad at all, to be honest. It's really sunny here. Had a bit of wind, quite a bit of gales going on, but not too bad at this moment in time. Teabag, why do you think the Sarah Everard case has drawn so much attention politically, as in why is this case the catalyst for bringing back up the 2012 arguments? I think it comes back down to, I'm just trying to think, Douglas Murray, he said, with racism in America, because obviously the big topic in America is obviously talk about racism, there's a supply and demand issue, and there's not enough racists to, for activists to fight against. And so I think in this country there's a problem where there isn't enough sexists for the feminists to rage against, let's say. And so it's like a supply and demand problem, ultimately. I think this particular case, I do think some of it is down to the fact that he's a police officer as well, because remember, these same people who are calling for curfews and everything, they were all part of the Black Lives Matter movement last year. They were the same people who were calling for defund the police, even here in this country. So, and the police are institutionally racist and everything. So I think a lot of it is because he's a police officer as well. I think also, I mean, this is me being rude about women that live in Richmond and such, where it's a lot of it's pearl gripping. I think some of it. I think a lot of it comes down to pearl gripping as well. So, that the police officer being a position of trust and power, but mainly trust, and the fact that someone like that, he supposed, well, according to the media at least, that he supposedly did this. I mean, he is innocent until proven guilty, which is again something weird, because the Met Police and the media and all these famous have all condemned him. I mean, we don't know if he has or not. He hasn't been found guilty in a court, so at this point he's still innocent until proven guilty. And if he's proven guilty, then yep, he's responsible. But until then, we don't know. I was going to say, yes, true. You're keeping tabs on this, and we'll do something once more information about it. But yeah, the police angle is an interesting perspective. Yeah. I mean, it's unusual, because you don't have the fact that police, but it's always been that when police have been involved in some sort of criminal crime, there's always interest, because it's number one, it then goes into the thing about corruption, because a lot of this is coming to the Met Police are corrupt, they're sexist, institutionalized racism, all of it is mixed into it, and because there's this one bad apple, there's automatically there must be some greater issues afoot, but then they've also gone into societal aspect, which is very 2012. So I mean, I don't think there's much in the way that outside echo chambers believe in this. When you walk the dog, beware of sudden hailstorms. Yeah, I got caught out today already in the hailstorm. That's it. This is such a unique situation. The reaction within the establishment / activists seems odd to me. Yeah. As I say, I think a lot of it comes down to supply. I mean, first of all, forget the people in the Conservative Party, because they are, they're just not saying anything, because either useless, or they just don't. The appropriate response would be to people like Dawn Butler and Jess Phillips: stop politicizing this criminal incident, even at the point where they don't even know that she was murdered, because number one, you're causing distress to the family and friends, no doubt, and it is pretty disgusting. I mean, politicizing on somebody who is may or not even be dead, and try and use that as a tool to bash society or something, it seems just a real scummy thing to do. And every Conservative politician should have been out, if they're using Twitter and everything, they should be out there and calling out Dawn Butler and saying how disgusting she is as a human being for even doing something like that. But that's my perspective on that. A lot of the also, this is a really weird thing, because I noticed that a lot of the activists like to relive past glories. So the Black Lives Matter activists, for them it was like relive. For them it was like younger generation wanting to relive the civil rights movements in the 60s and such. and probably teabag this. You might have heard of this. There was a documentary series on Netflix which was called The Ripper, which was about the Yorkshire Ripper and everything, and it went through the events and up until he was caught by the police. But one thing that's quite interesting with the documentary itself was heavily critical of the police commanders, and also the sort of society. And there was one episode where they interviewed a radical feminist and other feminists and everything, and the general and one thing they had issue at the time with was women were told to avoid walking the streets by themselves at night across Yorkshire, and maybe accompanying a group, that sort of stuff. And they took that as the way of basically, oh no, we should, why should we change our why should we change our habits? Yeah, I thought you did a video on it. Yeah, I mean, I say, have you done like a reaction to the Netflix? Do a reaction to that particular Netflix episode. I think it's episode 4 or something. And it's, I mean, it is a complete. It was pure sort of activist stuff, and it was like this. And there was one thing that was it was called Reclaim the Night, which the feminists came up with, and they protested around like Manchester and such, and York and what have you, protesting against this, that they should be living in fear and everything. And as soon as Sarah Everett was assumed to be dead because they were investigating, and then they announced that they arrested the police officer and everything, I saw that hashtag trending as well for quite some time. And again, I said I think a lot of it was, a lot of these radical feminists who were and journalists and everything, were sitting at home during lockdown where they watched that Netflix thing, and for them it was that's a lot of them would talk about this saying, oh my god, it's just like the Yorkshire Ripper, and everything. And for them, I think their Twitter storm and everything else that the media picked up on was they wanted to relive the glory days of the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, which is again really sick on itself. So yeah, I mean, I remember the Christopher Jeffries, the murder of Joanna Yates, and the whole situation around Christopher Jeffries, because at that time I was when I was still at school, there was a school trip up to Clifton, I think one of Clifton colleges, and it was to watch a play. I think it was like a play workshop or something. And I remember our history teacher who took us up there. He parked right. He parked just up the road from the property where she went missing, and at this point she was already, her body had already been found, and Christopher Jeffries was still the suspect, and he was still being questioned and in custody. And I remember like the media storm then. There was this creepy landlord and everything else, and they really went to town on him. Bearing in mind the incompetency of even the Somerset police really showed that there were multiple reasons why it couldn't have been him. First of all, the age difference as well, the strength, power, motive, being one of them. But yeah, I mean, if that happened today, I think something like that, the murder of Joanna Yates, would be heavily politicized by the movement. I mean, when did that happen? That must have happened in 2010, I think. Or was it 2009, 2010? Yeah, so something like that would be politicized today. But a lot of crimes, like murders and everything, will be politicized. But then you have, on the other hand, it's the outrage around this. While fine, it's a pretty horrific crime, but the same people would have been silent over what's happened in Rotherham and Rochdale with the Pakistani grooming gangs. They've been absolutely silent on this. So obviously, there is a political element to this, because they don't hold the same people in the same light, which is why I say. I mean, I think Labour, they still deny that there was even that these ethnic grooming gangs were a real thing, and then they would say, but then if you look at these reports, the majority of paedophiles and rapists are actually white British males. It's like, yeah, but I want to talk about this specific event that happened in places like Rotherham and Rochdale and Manchester and these groups, and why all these taxi drivers were all connected to each other and they knew each other. But yeah, so that's what we have at the moment. Yeah, I mean, the comparison at the between Sarah's Killer and Yorkshire Ripper is just ridiculous, because one was an active serial killer. I mean, I think a lot of them really wish he is a serial killer, the Sarah's Killer at the moment, because it would then give them further political points, to sort of justify their sort of 2012 arguments. Yeah, 6 p.m. curfew for me. I mean, there's a part of me that really wants Welsh Labour to do it and advocate for it, because I think that might, if that doesn't motivate people in Wales not to vote, especially men in Wales, not to vote for Labour, then nothing will. Yeah, it says about a lot of the activists. Yeah, they're, what's it they say on like Lotus Eaters, like morally bankrupt, or morally empty, challenged, or what have you. I mean, yeah, these are the same people, absolute same people. I'm probably going to call it an end here now, because we've probably just gone through the Q&As and everything. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you everyone in chat. And it's been quite a fun solo stream. I think it's been quite good, and I'll see you all guys. I'll see you guys later. As I said, I've got a stream coming up with His Apostolic Majesty come Wednesday, so I'll be on that. So do check it out, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good afternoon.